This week on the Baseline Podcast, Josh and I talk about the good news for North Carolina fans and seeing how Baycott coming back could really make a difference for this team next year. And then we talk about the spring game, the Ohio State spring game to be specific, and how the full tackling surprised Josh, but for me, I thought it was pretty good. And then we discuss Baker Mayfield. Is it good or is it bad of what he's doing out in the public? And where will he go next? All that and so much more coming up on the Baseline Podcast. Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the Baseline Podcast. I'm Ben, he's Josh. We're back once again. And now if you're, I'm just going to pause this, okay? Listen, okay? If you watch Real Talk with Ben, that comes out literally in like 4 days. Spoiler alert, Josh and I are both in that as well, and we're both wearing the same shirt. So don't think that we just basically, we're using the same episode of the Baseline. No, it's completely different. Josh talks a lot about his journey in life, different things that God's been teaching him. So it's a really cool interview. Go check it out. It was awesome to have him on there. And then he just said, you know what, it's Easter weekend. So, let's celebrate Christ rising from the dead and let's talk sports. Right. So, anyways, Josh, welcome back this week. Welcome back. How are you feeling? How are you feeling this week?
Ben, we got some awesome news in Tar Heel Nation. A couple weeks ago, Armando Baycott shocked me and perhaps a lot of the other Tar Heel fan base by coming back for his senior year. And then in addition to that, just a few days ago, Leaky Black, who got an extra year of eligibility because of the canceled 2020 season, decided to take advantage of that. And now he is back. So I went through a situation in my head where I was like, man, we could realistically, like, the whole starting lineup could be gone next year because
you did say that. You said that on podcast.
They are going to graduate or go to the NBA. Like, I felt like RJ Davis, Caleb Love, Armando Baycott all had compelling NBA arguments. Leaky Black, while I don't think he was like super high in anybody's NBA radar, like, I mean, that's still like he's played 4 years, so he could go if he wanted. Brady Mannix is the only one that really was definitely gone because he came in as a grad transfer. So this was it for him. But now Baycott is back and Leaky Black is back. And now I'm starting to wonder if these guys are coming back and they're all working together for a redemption tour in 2023, similarly to how Justin Jackson, Theo Pinson, and Joel Berry all came back for the 2017 season to help Carolina pull out a national championship after that heartbreaking loss to Villanova just the year before.
Vanderbilt?
Yeah.
Wow.
They both started with Ben. Give me a little break here. This is our second podcast too.
That is true. That is true.
That's kind of what I'm thinking is like, are these guys all coming back? Like, if Armando Baycott is coming back, certainly that means that RJ and Caleb Love have to be too, right? And Leaky is back as well.
And I mean, I look at this UNC and I think it shows one. First off, we got to talk about Baycott for a second.
Yeah,
this is such a very, like, I'm not a North Carolina fan, but this is gives me such a great mood because it finally shows that it's not about the money. It's not about, like, it's finally seen someone that's saying, I don't care about the money. It's going to be there. And like, that's what you guys used to say.
The money's even here right now, actually, because of NIL. Yeah. Like, you have a couple deals.
But it's the idea though, like, this is like back when we were kids, right? Like, you would see guys their junior year in football and college football or their freshman year in basketball. And they'd be like, no, we're going to stay the next couple years to develop. I know the money's going to be there. That's why I remember a quarterback said that ended up come back for a senior year. He's like, I know I'm making money. So why not go ahead and be like, well, what about the injury risk? He's like, but that's the game of football I play.
Was that Herbert?
I can't remember who it was. It might have been Herbert. I don't remember. But all I do know is that this, to me, to see Baycott doing this, I hope this rings across the nation. And I hope players realize that you're going to make money. You're already making money now. So why not take 4 years, get a degree, spend time with your friends that you're going to make, your teammates, coaches. These guys are developing you. And I think, we hear all these like things like Ohio State uses it, like developed here. And it's like, are we truly saying that now? Like, is it hard? Sometimes I'm like, guys are leaving after 2 years. You have guys leaving after 1 year.
If you're there a year, yeah.
So, but I love seeing Baycott coming back. I think the video itself, I watched that video and I'm like, man, this is like,
the
that's
leaky video
awesome.
was even better.
I haven't seen the leaky video, but I know the Baycott video was like,
that.
that
I
was
thought
cool.
that was even more well done. I do think though that, I mean, this isn't unique to, well, it might be unique to North Carolina, but it's not something that hasn't happened before.
Of course,
Tyler Hansbrough has come back to North Carolina for his senior year when he looked like a bona fide top 5 pick after his junior year. I just mentioned all those guys, Pinson, Berry, and Jackson coming back.
Which I wish Tyler Hansbrough would have turned. I wish Tyler Hansbrough would have turned out to be something in a NBA because he was just fun to watch.
Yeah, Cam Johnson stayed till his senior year at Carolina as well. I believe Marcus Page also stayed till his senior year. So, I mean, it's really common for Carolina, all their superstars to stay maybe an extra year. Even Harrison Barnes, like number 1 recruit. Like, I know he left after his sophomore year, but he could have been like a top NBA pick after his freshman year. But even he came back like 1 more year, sophomore year. Like, there's just something about Carolina that I think all the players that they attract, like, there's something there that they see that they love, or maybe they get to Carolina and after being there for like a year, they decide that, like, you know, this is a place where I want to spend a lot more time at than just this one and done season. Like, Carolina really hasn't been known to recruit too many one and done guys. Like, it's very rare. Like Tony Bradley, Kobe White, are a couple that I can think of off the top of my head that have been one and done, but it's really rare. Like that's just not the type of player they recruit. And Tar Heels love Carolina, Ben. What can I say?
Yeah, it is awesome. And again, I've always tipped my hat to Carolina because, you know, Duke used to be that way, and then Duke kind of got away from that, or adapted, however you want to say it, right? And also, by the way,
Coach K kind of adapted to, I guess, the way that recruiting.
I will say this though, Coach K got a puppy. I know you're not a Duke fan, but I'm sorry, that puppy was freaking adorable. And
I haven't seen it. You know,
you got to watch. You got to look at the video. It's the most purchase. It's the most like the team bought him. Coach Shire or whatever his name is bought him a puppy named Coach. It's the cutest puppy ever. But that's besides the point. But speaking of transfers, you know, I told you this last few weeks. Like, I've been really upset at Ohio State basketball for a couple years now. I feel like we're not. Like, we're there, but we're not. It's like, you know, people are like, oh, Holtman's got them to the tournament every year, and it's like, awesome. It just sweet. We make it to the second round and then we lose, right? We lost both our top stars, Liddell and blanking my head. Anyways, the other top guy that everyone who's a Ohio State fan will know who it is and make fun of me.
Clearly, Ben's not an Ohio State guy.
Yeah, obviously. But then we also lost Michi Johnson, who is a guard who is also in the transfer portal. We're losing Kyle Young. We're losing Kyle Young might be Kyle Young is done. Justice Suing, I believe, is coming back, which is a bonus. He's been out all year, but they're also losing a bunch of guards that are graduating. And so I'm sitting there going, like, what team is going to be left? Like, what are we going to do? They go out and get a guy named Tanner Holden. Now, many people don't know who this is. He played at Wright State, so a local kid from Ohio. He averaged 21 and 7 rebounds a game for Wright State, which, again, it's Wright State, I know, but that's still impressive at the D1 level. So I'm interested to see, like, what else does Ohio State get? I wish they could just recruit a little bit better. Like, at times, like, they have a really good recruiting class coming in with some really stud dudes, but they're all guards. Like, we don't have that. I think we have a 6'10" guy coming in, I believe, but still, why can't we get 3 of them? Why does North Carolina have like 4 7-footers and Ohio State has a guy that's 6'10", maybe, right? Like, so I am looking forward to seeing what Ohio State does. It's hard for me. It's not like football. It's hard for me in basketball to be like, oh, this team is going to be, a Final Four team. I wish I could say that. It's not the Greg Odens of the past or anything like that. Like, Thad Matta is now back in coaching. I'm like, great. All that's happening, but
Yeah, maybe some of that too. Like, we talked a little bit about, I guess, Ohio State's basketball program being like mostly known as a football school, but they do have a decent basketball program. One of the things that has helped them be so successful, at least on the football field, is the ability to nationally recruit. But even before that, like before they got to that level, they were keeping like all the top kids in-house too.
That's the thing,
and
yeah.
I mean, the state puts out so much good D1 football talent, and I'm not so sure that the state of Ohio puts out that much good D1
I think of Luke Kennard. I think of Luke Kennard. The guys from Ohio literally went to school, a couple hours away from Ohio State, and Ohio State can't land them. Like, those are the guys you can't let slip through the cracks. That's
like
the thing.
number one, like make sure you're keeping all the top kids in house, but then to get to maybe like that Duke or that, Kentucky or Kansas or like that national level, like you got to be able to go out and like nationally recruit.
The last really good player that I think was a one and done was obviously D'Angelo Russell. That was the last guy that I went like, wow, we got a guy that's like just an amazing basketball player. And since then, I feel like we've gotten some good stars. Like Liddell's really good, obviously. Branham, that's his name. Both those guys are going to be first round picks. And I think they're amazing players. Like, honestly, I do. Not saying anything wrong with them, but like, and I don't like one and dones, but it's nice to have a one and done every once in a while. You know, a guy that can go out and average 25 points and 15 rebounds and make your team look three times as good as
Ohio State regrets having Mike Conley and Greg Oden.
No, we don't. That's what I'm saying. It might have been only those 2 years, or that year, but it was still great. But anyways, basketball news, great things are happening in basketball, obviously. And there's some great things that, it's a disappointment for us Cavs fans. We're moving to the NBA, obviously, now. And so, Josh, let people know what happened to the Cavs this past weekend, because we sort of made the playoffs, but we didn't really make the playoffs. Explain what happened.
Yeah, this play-in tournament, Ben. I mean, I don't know why they have it. They already let literally half the teams in the league make the playoffs. Why do we need to allow like 3/4 of the league to make the playoffs? Whatever. It's like beside the point. But Cavs are one of those bottom teams where it's like what the 7, 8, 9, and 10s do the play-in tournament. Yep. Cavs are one of those teams. Unfortunately, they didn't win the number of games that it was going to take to, I guess, move on. Right? They played Brooklyn first.
Yeah, they played Brooklyn first. Yep.
Yeah, lost that game by 7 and then just lost to the Hawks by 6. So, I mean, I don't know if you can like split and make the playoffs or like what happens. I haven't really looked too much into the play-in rules, to be honest.
So basically they're done. So their season's over. The Cavs
they lost both of them. Yeah. But I mean, like if you go 1-1 in those 2 games, like what happens then?
So basically what happens is Brooklyn won, so they became the 7 seed. So they're going to play the Celtics, I think. Is that who it is? I think maybe, can't remember off the top of my head, but they play the 2 seed. Then the losers, so the Cavs, they played the winner of the 9-10 game. So it was the Hawks.
And that was for the 8 seed.
And then that was played for the 8 seed. And so now so you automatically, so this is the thing though. And I've said this, and I want to hear your thoughts on this too. First of all, let's talk about the play-in tournament for 1 second here. What are your thoughts on it? Because my thought is, if you look at the East side, right, you had all these teams that had winning records, and so it makes sense. You look at the West side, you had 3 teams that were almost 10 games under 500. So my question is, how do you feel? Like, I think 7 and 8, that's fine. As a Cavs fan, I'm like, yeah, course, let's do it. But if not looking biased wise, or however you want to say it, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, I think the play-in, when did they bring it out? They brought that during
COVID.
COVID, and it made sense then, because it's like, okay, we don't need to bring all of these teams back to finish the regular season. There was some like health concerns, and it was just like, how many people are we going to get into this bubble? And it made sense to bring, I guess, those teams that still had a shot at the playoffs, right? Like, we're not going to bring the 16th seed in the East to come out and play like these last 10, 15 games or whatever, when they could win them all and still not even make the playoffs. Like, they're that far out. So they brought it like the teams that still had a shot and kind of did like this bubble play and kind of a thing. And it made sense then. But it's 2022 now, Ben. We're not in a bubble, and we're playing regular season basketball all the time now. And you're already allowing half the league into the playoffs, as I said. More often than not, like this 8 seed, like we've seen 8 seeds have losing records. Like it's very
like this year, it's common. This year, it's that way in the West.
Like we have all the winning records in the East, which you usually don't see. The West has been the one that's kind of been like the really top heavy one. But I don't really get why we're still doing the play-in tournament. If you're a 10 seed, like you clearly didn't earn it. Like,
well, I think of it as
you won the top 8 and you couldn't even be that.
Well, I even think about it the Cavs sense. The Cavs were the 8 seed. Like if it ended, the season ended the way it was, the Cavs were the 8 seed. So now they lost their spot if it's a normal year, because they couldn't beat the Nets, who, by the way, the Nets shouldn't have even been a 7 seed. They were that talented. Yeah. And then you have the Cavs, who, let's be honest, and I want to point this out. I'll get to this in a second.
Cavs really shouldn't have been 8 either if it wasn't for all the injuries.
No, that's what I was about to say. Like the injuries, this Cavs team when they're healthy, they're a 4 seed, a 5 seed. And so to me, it's like you're taking away from a team that earned it, and especially a team like the Cavs, who won 22 games last year, won 44 this year. They doubled their wins in a year. And you're now not going to reward them to a playoff because, oh, we have to have a play-in tournament. And then, then Silver's coming out and saying, the Commissioner Silver's like, oh, we're probably going to have like a mid-season tournament sometime in the future. I'm like, what?
For what?
They're going to call it basically like the Champions League of the NBA. So like the top 4 teams in each, they're going to play like a mini Championship League type.
And what does the winner get out of that?
Exactly. That's my point too.
If there's no like incentive to win, like you can imagine most of those guys are going to sit out.
Exactly.
Because they already love to sit out and load manage anyways.
Yeah. And it's interesting. I hear like Lakers fans they were like I heard like posts on Instagram and stuff. They're like, yep, see Cavs, you didn't even make the playoffs. I'm like, dude, first off, shut up, because one, you guys didn't even make the play-in tournament, and also you were 17 games under 500 with LeBron James on your roster. Let me correct this: with LeBron James on your roster. So that was the one thing. But second thing, I want to say about this Cavs, and I'm going to stand by this. I said to you, I think a few weeks ago, that I believe this Cavs team could make a run if they were healthy. This team was not healthy. This team has not been healthy all year. I still believe, Josh, that next year you will see a Cavs team again in this position. I think even better. I think they could be a 5 or a 4 seed next year. They're going to get everyone back.
A lottery pick now.
They do. They do get their 14th
Since
pick.
We technically aren't a real 8 seed.
No, yes. They get the 14th pick. So we will have the 14th pick. They're projecting a point guard because we're losing Rondo in the free agency, a few other people. So we have everyone coming back. There's talks about extending Sexton, which I hope they don't. I hope they just let him have his last year of his contract, and then after this next year, just let him walk. I just think Sexton's one of those guys that you have a great system right now without him. Do we really want to add another ball handler into the mix? So yes, they will have the 14th pick. They have everyone come back. Allen will be back. Markkanen, Mobley, who, by the way, if Mobley does not win Rookie of the Year, then we all should just stop caring about the Rookie of the Year, because that man was a difference maker when he was on the floor. Difference maker. But yeah, so I think the Cavs have a great, bright future. I don't know about you. What are your thoughts? Do you think this Cavs team is this a one and done thing for you? Or do you think like, hey, if they keep doing what they're doing, they're going to be a consistent playoff team?
I mean, look how young they are, Ben. Like, I can't imagine that this is the ceiling for this team.
There's no way.
There's too many young pieces around. They nailed Garland's been way better than what I thought he would be. I thought that was a terrible pick. He's turned out to be. I mean, he was an all-star this year, was he not?
Yep.
And then Mobley, I mean, that looks like
He's
a slam dunk Rookie of the Year. That dude can do so much, so big. He can play inside. He can play outside, handle the ball. It looks like that guy can play.
Markkanen's had a resurgence.
Yeah,
he's had a resurgence.
Osman's good, and Kevin Love seems to have settled into a new role off the bench.
Now, this is my thing. This is my thing about Kevin Love. They need to, after this next year, I would hope they re-sign him, but they need to get him a contract that's like $3 million, not 25. They're paying him $25 million next year for a guy that's coming off the bench.
He's doing great in this new role that he has that I didn't think he would. It didn't seem like he was interested in that, being a part of a rebuild. He kind of had like those temper tantrums going on, where it's like, okay, Kevin, do you want to be a part of a rebuild, or do you want to be the star of another team? Because we can trade you. And he's like, nope, I want to be in Cleveland. And then he's in Cleveland. And he's like, wah, I'm not the guy. And it's like, okay, well, what are we doing here? And it looks like he's settled into that role. So it would be really nice if the best or the highest paid player on our team wasn't playing like the 7th most minutes. So
yeah, and I think they're obviously Garland's going to be up for a contract extension here soon, which I hope they lock him up for many years to come.
That's the other thing too, is like this team hasn't reached their ceiling yet, but how much longer are they on the rookie deals?
I believe they have.
We got to pay them
2023 to 2024. I believe is when they have everyone locked up for sure through then. So for at least 2 more years, you have everyone locked up outside of Sexton. So I think they're going to, at some point, Mobley's going to want to get paid. I'll say this offensive lineup, by the way, has Allen at 7 foot, Mobley at 7 foot, Markkanen at 7'2", 7'1". You have 3 7-footers in the starting lineup. When they are healthy, it is one of the most terrifying lineups to see. And they also got rid of Taco Fall. We're not going to talk about that. That was a terrible mistake. I'm sorry that Altman, I love you, but that was a stupid mistake. You don't get rid of Taco Fall. All right. He's the man himself. Taco Fall. I mean, he's amazing. He's an awesome guy. We're buddies. We're personal BFFs. But no, I think this Cavs team is going to be a very good team for years to come. They're, like you said, they're young. I think their starting five was all like 20, like 25 or younger. It's ridiculous. And we don't even talk about Isaac Okoro, who turned out to be, he's a terrible shooter. Like he can't score to save his life.
His offense was going to need some development, but we knew that he could play defense.
He's an amazing, if he doesn't make like, in the next year, I hope he makes a defensive team because he's that good. But also Kobe Altman, if you can hear me, I know you're not paying attention to me at all, but if LeBron James ever wants to come back, can you please say no? Let's just say no. Okay.
I feel like Cleveland fans would be brainwashed enough and stupid enough to welcome him back again with open arms. But Ben, how many times have we seen LeBron take a team,
the Lakers this year,
and trade them all away and bring in 40-year-old has-beens, and the team is worse off now than before?
It's true. And so, yeah, I think the Cavs need to go out this draft. They don't need a big man. Please don't draft a big man. Like we already have like 30 of them. Let's get a guard. We need a good backup young guard you can develop. They've talked about this Washington kid. I don't really know who he is. Again, we'll get into the draft whole thing once the draft gets closer. But
wouldn't it be great if Jaden Ivey fell to 14?
Oh, that would be great. Or if they could steal Branham if they could trade back and steal Branham from Ohio State, that's also a good one because he's young. He's 19. Dude can develop for a few years.
Yeah, I don't really know where everybody's getting projected right now, but I thought Armando Bacot was like a slam dunk top 10 pick.
Oh, easily.
The article I read was like talking about early second round. I was like, I'm not an NBA scout, but like Bacot was player of the year in the ACC. I mean, that's
but I think too, though, I've seen it too, though. Like, you remember Luke Herringody that just dominated in college? He was also second round pick. You look at, Isaiah Thomas, who was an amazing basketball player in college, second round. There's a lot of guys that fall the second round because their body type or their physicality or whatever doesn't match up.
My guy Hansbrough was
he's second round, I believe.
He was a second round pick too.
Yeah. So it's going to happen, and I think that will happen. But yeah, the Cavs have a bright future. So Josh, would you say this is a thumbs up year for the Cavs? I mean, I would say that's a thumbs up year for the Cavs.
Next year has to be playoffs.
It has to be.
It has to be playoffs next year. If you're not, you went down.
Yeah, and so I think early projection for me is I think this team will be in that 5 to 6 range. I think is a good spot for them next year. Then again, maybe they'll prove me wrong. Like this year, I predicted you weren't on the show then, but back in like October or whatever, I predicted the Cavs would finish I think it was like 25 and like whatever 50 or something like that. I had friends that
were optimistic that they could be like a 10. And I was like, dudes, they're literally a 14 seed.
Yeah, and so I'm glad that I was wrong.
More wrong.
I'm glad I was wrong, but it's good to see what the Cavs have been doing, to see how they are really making this team a success, and it's awesome to see. But even more than that, right? You have the Cavs, obviously, and you have some great games coming up. I want to hear your thoughts on this. I don't know if you've heard this on podcasts or anything, but people have been talking about the Timberwolves in the play-in game. Just go like they were just pumped. After the game, they won the play-in game. They hadn't made the playoffs yet. They started to win one more. And they're pumped up. Or no, they won the playoff game, so they got to make the playoffs. And they were pumped up and everything. And people are coming out saying, "Oh, why are they so excited? It's just a play-in game." And I'm like, hold up. For years, we've been getting on professional athletes that they don't care. They don't care about the game. They only care about themselves. You have a bunch of dudes with their home crowd jumping up and down, cheering that they made the playoffs. Like that to me is the essence of sports. Like it's like here in Hungary, like if the Hungarian national team just made to the group stages of the World Cup, we would be jumping up and down knowing that we're probably going to get our butts handed to us for the next 4 games. But that's what happens. So what are your thoughts on that? And how do you think, like, I feel like it should be a good thing that they're doing this, not a negative thing.
Yeah, I got no problem with this, Ben, for a few reasons. First off, what has the Minnesota Timberwolves had to celebrate as a franchise at any point in time?
Since Kevin Garnett left.
Since Kevin Garnett left, I think they had like that one period where Jimmy Butler was there for like a season and a half.
Yeah,
And
Kevin Love as well.
One time they had Kevin Love come through, but I don't think he ever actually took them to the playoffs.
No.
If my memory is correct. So this franchise, for one, hasn't had a lot to celebrate. So, I mean, the fact that they made the playoffs, I mean, is a huge accomplishment because I don't think a lot of people saw this team going.
No, I don't think so.
Anyway, so they made the playoffs for one. Like, you got to look at like the history of the franchise. And then number two, like one of those guys celebrating was Patrick Beverley, who is a former Los Angeles Clipper who was basically kicked to the curb by them because they didn't need him anymore. So this was personal. I mean, if you know Patrick Beverley, anything about
everything's
him,
personal.
Everything's personal. Like, that dude is an absolute menace on the court. And if you have ever wronged him in any way that he feels,
he'll let you know.
Want to make you pay. So, I mean, that was revenge for him. This was overcoming the odds for a franchise. Like, and like you said, like, we get on these guys for caring. We get on them for caring too much. Like, which is it exactly here? Like, I have absolutely no problem with the celebration that they had out there.
Yeah, it's awesome. And then they go out and beat who did they beat the first round? They won yesterday, and they beat I'm trying to think who it was. Memphis. They beat Grizzlies. So they're already up 1-0 on them. And it's like, that's what it does. It brings the momentum. And it's awesome to see. And also like what Karl Anthony Towns went through, losing his mom, and like, you know, this means a lot for him. And it's a cool thing to see. I hope they keep it up. And you know what? I'm pulling for the Timberwolves now. I'm like, you know what? Screw all the haters, right? Like I'm for them. And it's in a really, really awesome time. And speaking of an awesome time, and something that was really cool yesterday, as we're recording this, so it might be like 2 days ago, the High State spring game, right? Where there's some other spring games obviously went on, but High State spring game. Obviously, we talked about last week, Dwayne Haskins tragically passing away. And we both talked about how much that has really, I know, affected me as an High State fan, but also affected just the world of sports. High State came out with decals. They came out with his initials lettered everywhere, and it was a really cool experience to see. So yeah, like Josh, how do you feel like what would you feel, I think, in the sense of like going to that game, a spring game, but you have such that heavy heart at the same time? Like, how do you think as a fan or even as a player, like, especially like CJ Stroud, who wears number 7, how do you think that would play a factor into just, I know it's just a spring game, but in anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, CJ even had Haskins Jr. on the back,
which is awesome.
32, and they both wear number 7. I imagine while they never played on the same team together, that Haskins dominated Ohio State, and then that leads to Justin Fields wanting to go to Ohio State.
Yep.
And I mean, Haskins was like, I guess, the first real quarterback prospect that they've had come through. Mm-hmm. And that has, I mean, they've seen him turn into a top 15 pick, set all those Big Ten records. And so that led to Justin Fields wanting to go there and play in Ryan Day's system. And now it's led to CJ Stroud wanting to do the same. So I'm sure that Haskins, while he didn't have like an influence on CJ Stroud in the locker room, but maybe played a little bit of part in him influencing his decision to go to Ohio State. Maybe he even saw Dwayne on a visit. I don't know, like, when that would have happened, when he would have been taking trips to campus and stuff like that, but definitely saw Dwayne play in an Ohio State jersey. Maybe I don't know if like the decision to wear number 7 had anything to do with Dwayne. Yeah. I have no idea about that, but they both wore it, and it was cool to, I guess, pay tribute. A lot of those coaches on the team coached when Dwayne was there. So, I mean, I figured like this would be something big in that regard. The Ohio State preseason spring game was also one of the more seems like attended spring games. Like some of these stadiums, like you look at the Big House, how empty it was when Michigan was playing their game, and then
Ohio State had 50 plus thousand.
Yeah, and sometimes they nearly sell out to that thing. Like a lot of people may have gone, I guess, just maybe for the memorial, because I mean they were doing some kind of like moments.
Yeah, they were. Yeah,
things like that. Like you said, they had the decals. So yeah, I mean that's about, I guess, what you can expect them to do. I don't think they overdid it. I don't think they underdid it. Another thing, Ben, too, that kind of shocked me about the spring game was that they were out there hitting.
Yes.
Like in an era where everybody is so worried about getting injured and skipping bowl games because money's on the line and seasons are on the line, and we don't want to like have anything like terrible happen in these meaningless games. Ohio State's out here for like the first time in 2 or 3 years saying we're going to come out and actually play full contact. Like, how do you feel about that as
I'll
a
be
fan?
100%
Does
honest
that
with you.
concern you at all? Like, what
No.
if like Jackson Smith
No.
and Jigba tears an ACL or something like that?
No, you know why? You know why I don't care? You know why I don't care as much? Is because it's football. Like, I'm tired of these freaking spring games, spring training basically, but spring games where they're just, touch. You wonder why that Michigan called Ohio State out last year, and I'll still remember this. It's going to stick with me. It sticks with all the players. They said we weren't tough enough. Well, you know what? I think this is a Ryan. I don't know this for a fact, but I think this is Ryan Day message saying, "Okay, we're going to go out there and hit." I think this is.
It all starts there, yeah.
Yeah, and I think Jim Knowles coming over from Oklahoma State saying, you know what, let's hit, let's buy, and we had a couple guys get banged up, but you know what, that's football. Deal with it. The guys get hurt. We have guys tearing ACLs from freaking doing the soldier boy, at a party. So it doesn't really matter. That's the game you play, right? And so I think in the long run, I think it's going to help Ohio State because I think it does stick with them. Like they still hate the fact they lost to Michigan. And I think when Michigan players were coming out and saying that we were soft, we didn't know how to play, which I do believe they were soft in that game. And I think Ohio State want to come out with a message, sending it right up to the team up north saying, okay, cool. You think we're soft? We're just going to hit during a spring game when you guys are up there messing around, having certain quarterbacks I will not mention on here coming out to do a tryout in the middle of your game when didn't even attend the university. But that's besides the point. But seeing what Ohio State's doing there, and I had no problem with it. To see also some of the running backs we have, I knew we had Henderson. But then you see Mayan Williams, who had been kind of on and off last year, run for 100 yards. Then you see Pryor, who was the fourth string last year, say, I'm going to get me 100 yards. And then you see the backup quarterback saying, hey, wait, we know you got CJ Stroud, but we're also going to drop some dimes as well. So this Ohio State offense is going to be scary. And when I mean scary, it's going to be super scary with an offensive line the way they are. They got most of the offensive line back. And then, by the way, they have a new defense coordinator with the defense that is wacky and weird, but I love it. I love this Ohio State team. And I know I'm biased, but I mean this honestly as not just a Ohio State guy, but as a football guy. You watch that game yesterday, and these dudes they're hungry and they're angry and they want to get back to where they were, and that means beating Michigan and getting back to the national title game.
Very much that revenge tour that I was talking about with my North Carolina hoops team. I imagine that the Ohio State football team has maybe even more motivation, a lot more, outside talk. Because while North Carolina went on their run kind of overachieving people's expectations, Ohio State just went through a season where they underachieved and didn't meet people's expectations.
Yeah, and I think you're going to see Ryan Day put that pedal to the metal, right? Like that thing with a phrase we always hear. I think you'll see that. I think you'll see Ryan Day say, guys, and I think you'll see, I would not be shocked if he starts pulling different dudes at the beginning of the year next year. Like, hey, you're not working hard enough. Hey, you're not playing hard enough. We're going to put another guy in there because we have some really good freshmen coming in that can also make an impact right away. And got some good transfers. We have our whole special team. We have our kicker, punter, and long snapper back, which is still unheard of in this day and age because you always have a new kicker, it seems like, every year. So, I mean, every aspect of the game, they're back, they're fresh. The only issue I see for Ohio State this year, and it's the one, the interior offensive line, I'm still kind of interested to see how that works. And also, the defensive line needs to be the old defensive line of Ohio State. I am worried that they are too much. They didn't have any pass rush last year. Is Harrison coming back? Is he actually going to have a great year? Tulau, Sawyer, are these guys actually going to get to the quarterback this year? That's what, for me, is what is going to be a test to see in the long run.
Yeah, I think the talent's there. We know what kind of dogs Larry Johnson can develop, defensive line coach. I heard that Jack Sawyer's kind of lining up as a stand-up defensive end, kind of playing a role similar, I guess, like what Von Miller does in the NFL. So that could be kind of interesting. But I think a lot of these guys are young too and just maybe need a little bit more development. But I think the talent's in the building. Larry has the resume. Really would be nice to see Zach, they'll be able to step up as a senior. Because he was, a highly touted recruit that maybe hasn't lived up to all the hype necessarily.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting.
One of the key veterans on this D line.
Yeah, he's got to. And again, we could talk about all these different spring games going on. I think, there's always a ton going on. I think what I love about the spring game too is you get to see the nobodies, right? Like that's why I always went to the spring game with my dad, and that was always fun. You'd see these like walk-on dudes trying to make like one-handed catches because they're like, look, this might be the only time I play this year, so I'm going to go out there and make some catches. But you've also seen guys make them names for themselves. Benjamin Victor a few years ago was like, that was where he made his name for himself. He had like 3 ridiculous catches in the spring game, and then he ended up next year being like the 3rd receiver. So that's what I love about the spring game. You see guys that like Evan Pryor, who I think everyone thought was the 3rd string, but now he might get some touches with the first team. Like these are the things that help you grow in that sense. So what do you feel? Have you watched any of the other spring games? How do you feel like are a lot of the teams not doing as much as Ohio State?
I mean, I hear buzz from everybody's spring games a little bit. I want to tell you what I heard from Alabama's, that Jermaine Burton and Jamar Gibbs, 2 guys that transferred in, kind of took the show over. Burton he's the guy from Georgia, right? Yep. The receiver, had a couple big catches. Jamar Gibbs is a former all ACC running back at Georgia Tech. He had, I guess, a couple big plays too. But I want to touch on Bama, though, Ben, because they have an interesting situation where they just went from a team not too long ago with 4 wide receivers in the room that were all first-round picks. Now they're in a situation where it's like they literally are struggling to recruit and develop talent. Like if they don't have Jamison Williams last year, who transferred in
from Ohio State, by the way,
what is that wide receiver room? Like John Mechie, while he did turn out to be solid, I think he was ranked like the 40th best receiver in his class, if I remember correctly. I think so. Like not very highly touted. This Burton dude is another kid that's transferring in, and they're kind of like trying to get a couple other kids. They kind of like have the flares out saying like, hey, we could use another portal kid. Like the kids that are in the building aren't good enough. And I think the wide receivers coach's name's Wiggins. He came in 2020, so he kind of inherited that all first-round wide receiver room. And, Nick Saban kind of threw shade at the receiver room in the national championship game because Mechie was already hurt. Jamison Williams tore his ACL, and then guys that were supposed to step up weren't ready for the moment. And clearly they're not ready for the moment yet if Bama's still going out and getting transfers like Burton and still kind of looking to get some other ones. Like, what's going on with this Bama wide receiver room, Ben? Is this Wiggins dude a fraud, or is Saban going to cut this dude loose soon?
It's called Brian Hartline's the best wide receiver coach in the nation at Ohio State. That's what it is, because we gave them Williams, right? Like it was like we had so much talent that we're like, hey, you know what? You want to leave? Okay, we're just going to throw Jackson Smith and Jigba, and he'll have 1,000 yards this year, right? I've said this about Alabama. There was going to be a time when things would start slowing down, and I think what you're seeing is that, yes, Alabama's still going to win games because it's Alabama, but I think you're starting to see teams catch up in certain aspects of the recruiting game that I don't know if the guy's a fraud, but obviously he's not recruiting well if you can't go out and land.
Like Alabama's always done well with receivers,
exactly.
Right? I mean, going back to like when Nick Saban first got there, he's had guys like Julio Jones and Amari Cooper and Calvin Ridley. And I mean, it's just, there's always like one dog in the room. And right now, I don't know if they necessarily have that. Maybe this Burton dude's that guy, but he's still like a Georgia product. Like they aren't bringing any recruits
exactly
and like those other guys before them.
I mean, look at Ohio State. They're bringing in 4 and 5 stars like 3 of them. And it's like, well, they already have 5 of them on the roster.
And becoming first-round picks.
Exactly. And so I think Ohio State's going to be one of those teams that is, I think the difference that I think Alabama's also doing like a Duke thing, right? Where they're like trying to start transfer guys or trying to get like these one and done guys. I mean, honestly, they're going out and getting Jamison Williams. He's gone after a year, right? Like when is it going to be where Nick Saban takes over the whole recruiting, the wide receiver, and says, look, if you guys can't do it, I'm going to do it myself.
Yeah.
Because that's what I feel like.
You can't go out and get a dog and develop him. Like they have another guy, I can't remember his name, if it's like Biggs or something like that is transferring out.
Yeah, they have another guy. Yeah. They have another guy that's transferring out. It's like, wait, you're Alabama. Like, why are you losing wide receivers? And why can't you get wide receivers when
you shouldn't be losing wide receivers because you don't even have any wide receivers good enough to play. Like
you have Ohio State.
Everybody you can.
Ohio State had the number one has 3 number 5s on their roster right now. Has like 4 stars. It's like how does Ohio State have this? And no, I love it that Ohio State has this, but I'm just saying, if you're an Alabama fan, you're going, wait a minute, we're competing against Ohio State for these guys, and Ohio State's walking in there and grabbing them and leaving, or
Yeah.
Texas A&M. Texas A&M's now doing that. They're just grabbing all the D linemen from Alabama and leaving. And
I don't have a problem with like utilizing the transfer portal for like a couple kids here and there, but it's like Alabama seems to be relying on that more than their actual recruiting and development.
And again, this could be because we both just hate Alabama. That could also be why we're saying.
And it's only also specific to just the wide receiver position.
Yeah, of course. Of course, we have to listen. We have to pick something.
Is in the conversation for being wide receiver U, and they seem to be falling off on that right now.
Yeah, and listen, they never have been. It's been Ohio State. Okay, let's just we'll leave it at that.
We will leave it there.
CBU, and wide receiver U are Ohio State's claim to fame. I'm sorry, Florida fans. I'm sorry.
I would if I know we said we'd leave it, Ben, but I would go with Clemson as wide receiver U if I had to say.
Sammy
Watkins, DeAndre Hopkins.
But let's see. Hold on. Wait until after this year, when both Olave and Wilson are drafted the first 20 picks of the draft, and then see how their careers go in a few years, and then maybe we can start talking. We've seen Jackson Smith and Jigba. You have Marvin Harrison Jr. I mean, these guys are coming through now. That could maybe claim. Okay, I will give it now.
Yes. They could totally overtake, but I really like the NFL team. I mean, I didn't even mention T. Higgins or Martavis Bryant. Clemson's got some dogs too.
It's true. Some dogs in the fight.
But they also don't have any more coming up, and Ohio State looks like they just got some more continuing. So
that is true. We're a factory.
Change.
It's Zone 6, baby. Zone 6. But speaking of the NFL, we have some Baker Mayfield. No real news, really, other than the fact that Baker Mayfield decides that he just wants to keep on spitting things left and right. And to me, I'm interested to see what you think about this whole Baker situation, because for me, it's getting to a point where I'm like, okay, Baker, I get what you're trying to say, but you really need to start shutting your mouth, because now you're going to start just ticking off about every Browns fan that was behind you and supported you, because I get it. It was bad communication. It was bad this, bad that. But also, I don't think and also the fact that you have a Carolina wide receiver that says he doesn't want you, you're not helping your case. So I'm interested to see, Josh, what is your thought on this and this opinion on this whole Baker Mayfield situation?
Yeah, the Carolina receiver Robbie Anderson, maybe he was just standing up for his quarterback, being a little bit of a loyal teammate. Maybe that it was a little bit of that, because I think Baker Mayfield's better than every quarterback on their roster right now. But
still, it's the idea though that he verbally said that in public, which it goes, it could be Sanford, but he also could have undertones to that too.
Yeah, it could be a little bit of both even. But to go back to what Baker was saying, some people, the discussion has been like, did this podcast interview help or hurt him? And I'm kind of a little bit more on like the neutral side. Like, I don't know if it really did much. It's what we expect from Baker though, right? Like we hear him talk more than like any other starting quarterback. That's been like one of the biggest knocks that guys like Colin Cowherd have had on him. That was some of the buzz of around Mayfield coming out of college. Like, this guy, he pays so much attention to the noise and he does so much talking. And I haven't listened to the full podcast yet. I do plan to do that eventually, but the quotes that I heard from that, like the feeling of being disrespected when they go out and get Deshaun and they told him that, like, he's their guy. I mean, how many times have we heard that story? That's like the NFL. That's the business of professional sports.
But it is though. But that's the thing. It is though.
It is. So it's like, that's his situation is not unique. Like, that's not the first time that's ever happened.
I feel like he's trying to make it unique, and that's what bothers me. Like, he's trying to make it seem like
he's not the first quarterback to be replaced by somebody that the franchise thinks is better.
Yeah, and like, again, whatever you think about Deshaun Watson, I don't care whatever side you're on. Look, that was a Browns decision, and I'm going to trust Andrew Berry. That Andrew Berry has done a great job so far, and if he busts on this Deshaun Watson, then okay, he's a failure. Like, we'll label it as that, right? Like, he's hurt the Browns tremendously. But if you're Baker, right, and you say, well, I appreciate everything Cleveland's done for me and whatever, like, like. And
then he was bringing up how he's had like 4 head coaches in 4 years, 4 coordinators in 4 years.
I get that.
Adding to being the victim.
But like, but this is the thing is it is a business. And if the Cleveland thinks that Deshaun Watson fits their team better, then just like, I get it, you're hurt, but this is the game you play, that you signed up to do this. It's just like it's just like in college football. You get a guy, you're going to try transfer. Let's be honest. If Baker had another bad year next year, not saying he would or didn't, they would probably be in the same loop this year, the following year, and go out and get a quarterback. It would have happened.
Yeah.
We both know that.
If our audience listens to our Real Talk with Ben episode that we recorded before this, I mean, what was one of the things that I said sports have taught me? Like, if you want something, go out and get it. Like, life isn't always going to be fair. This situation Baker doesn't think is fair. So instead of maybe complaining about it and being playing the victim and trying to get everybody to be like, woe is me, maybe he should be spending more time trying to be a better quarterback, so that whichever team does end up making a trade for him or signing him, he ends up proving everybody in Cleveland wrong, and then they can be like, wow, what a huge mistake we made.
But also, I want to say this: there's no teams calling about him. And that should scare him. Like that for me, right. It's like, dude, no one's calling for you. There's two teams at least that need a quarterback, and they're saying nothing to you because they don't believe you are better than right now, or you might be a distraction.
The Detroit Lions right now think Jared Goff is a better fit right now than Baker Mayfield. The Seahawks right now think that Drew Lock is a better option than Baker Mayfield right now.
And that's the thing. And so,
at least Robbie Anderson think that Sam Darnold is a better situation for them right now.
So I would say this, and I want to ask you this, Josh, what do you think is going to be the outcome of Baker Mayfield? What do you think is going to happen? I want to hear your take of what you think in the next few months is going to happen with Baker.
Yeah, that's a tough one right now. I would like to think that there's going to be a draft day trade involving him. I also think that it was a colossal failure by the Browns to not already have a plan to ship Mayfield out. Like, I think he should have been involved in the Deshaun trade, or even find a third team that they could pitch him off to. But that's kind of a mistake on the Browns too, is like, why is he still on the roster exactly? Why didn't we make this trade involving him? But what I think for Mayfield, I don't think he's going to be on the roster week one for sure. I think by then they would probably just cut him just so that there's no distraction. They went out and made a trade for Jacoby Brissett. That's clearly
Josh Dobbs. They also signed up.
Signed Josh Dobbs. Yeah. So it's like, okay, they got a quarterback room planned to move on from Baker. And I think if they can't get rid of him by the start of the season, they'll just end up cutting him. But I would like to think that we can hook up a draft day trade, or maybe a quarterback goes down in preseason and then he can be like that emergency guy that we trade away for like a 4th round pick or something like that, which kind of sucks considering we used the 1st overall pick on him. I'm also kind of shocked, Ben, that the value, or the market for Baker Mayfield really isn't there. Maybe some of that is just because of the timing of everything. Like,
I think his attitude though too. I think it's his attitude too.
Everybody kind of made their move for quarterback, and so now everybody that I guess needed a quarterback already has one, if they wanted one at this point. If not, they're probably planning on drafting one. But I've told you before how big of a Baker Mayfield fan I am. I think he's like a top 10 quarterback in the league when he is healthy. And some guys that are like, I guess, around his tier or even below his tier, like Kirk Cousins and Derek Carr and Ryan Tannehill, are getting all this money and all these extensions. And Mayfield's out here, he can't even get like a team to offer for a trade.
Yeah.
Wow, he's on a rookie contract, mind you.
Yeah. And so I see what you're saying. And I think I personally believe this is just my gut feeling. I think at best they could get a draft day trade or right before the draft, and maybe get like at the best a 2nd round pick, maybe a 3rd, and maybe get someone in return, maybe like a backup player or something like that. Right. My gut feeling is they're going to have to eat all that money. That's just my gut feeling, or they're going to eat half of it, or whatever they're going to do. I just don't think a team at this point, that the Browns have no leverage. So there's nothing where
that's
so I think it's going to be one of those things where July will hit and they'll just eat his contract and say, hey, thank you for your 4 years. And we wish you all the best. And again, I want to point out, like, I don't hate Baker. I never have. I've had issues with the way he handles himself sometimes, and I think everyone has. But he's been a great thing for Cleveland. He brought us to our first playoff game and won our first playoff game in a really long time.
And he legit wanted to be there.
Yeah.
Like, how many people have wanted to be in Cleveland?
Yeah.
And for Cleveland.
Yeah, and that's the thing. And again, I loved his fiery attitude, his underdog mentality, but I think it got for a lot for the Browns. I've talked with Browns fans that kind of got tired of his like thinking he was the best quarterback in the NFL. And again, that's part of his mentality, but I think also it's like, okay, dude, you're not a top 5 quarterback yet. And I think at times when he's healthy, yeah, he's amazing, but even when he was healthy and there was, bad plays here and there, I'm like, I'm okay with that, whatever. But I think even what maybe Andrew Berry is looking at is like, okay, we had 4 years with him. He was injured 1 year, had a good year, bad year, like there's a lot of inconsistency at times. But I'm sitting here going, Deshaun Watson hasn't played in a year. Do we know it's going to be the same? And I know we've had this talk in the past. And I think maybe Deshaun Watson does want to be there. He says he wants to be here until he retires. If Deshaun Watson turns out, which we both want, by the way, we both want Deshaun Watson, this whole thing to work out.
We want whatever the heck they just did to work out. We just don't think it's going to.
Yes. And that's our thoughts. And again, we wish the best for Baker. I'll be rooting for him no matter like what team he goes for. I'll be rooting to that. He has a great career. Maybe one day the Browns can reconcile at the end of his career and he can come back for a year or something like that. That'd be really cool for me. But I don't know. We'll see. We'll see what happens with the Browns. It's an interesting concept that I think, it's going to be really interesting. But speaking of Cleveland, things happened this past week, Battle of Ohio, and it's depressing for me. We're jumping to baseball, by the way.
A certain wager that was made too.
Listen, the wager is still going on. There's 2 games left. All right, I saw there's 2 games left. Okay, so as long as the Reds win, this is the thing. If it's a tie, I don't know what we do, but if the Reds lose one, I'm screwed.
Like nobody gets anything.
Yeah, but I'm screwed if they lose one game. So, but yeah, if you didn't hear last week's episode, you might want to go check that out. It's kind of cool. We talk about it a little bit, but we do have a wager on. So whoever wins the Battle of Ohio, if you didn't know, that's the Cleveland Guardians versus the Cincinnati Reds, and whoever wins those out of all the games they play, whoever wins the most games, then the other person. So I'm for the Reds, he's obviously for the Guardians, and we had to pay money to the other person to then, I don't know what they'll use it on. I'll probably go out to eat with my wife or something. I don't know, but I don't see myself winning now because I literally physically can't win now. I'm literally just hoping I don't lose.
Better hope Hunter Green's on the mound.
Dude, I'm telling you, that's crazy. But let's talk about this real quick before we finish up the show. So Reds, Guardians, those 2 games, what did I say? Did I not tell you? I said this before these games happened. I said it would be 2 things. Can the Reds stop their hitting? And can the Reds pitching actually pitch? And neither happened. So,
and I told you, I trust the Cleveland pitching, but can the bats come around? Because they came off of 2 games against Kansas City where they combined for 1 run before they went off for 17 in the 3rd game. And I was like, that might have just been a fluke though. Like, are they going to keep this up? And then they just kept hitting once they got to Cincinnati.
And then
you guys were able to stop Steven Kwan though from reaching base finally for one of those games. You got him his first strikeout of the season, so it is proven now that he is not immortal. He is not a robot. He is a human being, just like everybody.
But we all know because we're both Reds, or I'm a Reds fan, you're a Guardians fan, that we all know that Steven Kwan's now going to be like hitting 240 for the rest of the year, and he's going to be like doing
Hopefully
nothing.
Not, man. We hyped that man up way too much this first week. Everybody did, not even just in Cleveland, but I mean everybody else was talking about it.
But this always happens. But this happens to the Reds and Guardians. We have like one player that hits like amazing the first 2 months, and then the rest of the time it's like they hit 160. But speaking of
Jose though.
He is
had a heck of a series.
Okay, that's also because the Reds can't stop giving up home runs. That's besides the point. Lodolo, who I was like, I was hyping him up. I'm like, he's going to be like the next guy after Green. Yeah, he sucked. That was awful, dude. It was so bad. It was so bad. But let me just put it this way. So before we recorded this, Josh was like, "Oh yeah, the Guardians are not doing too bad." I'm like, no, he was like, "Yeah, they're struggling a little bit, not scoring the runs as much."
Now they're playing.
Okay, but listen, hold up, just be quiet for a second, all right? Freaking the Reds are 2-7, all right? We lost to the freaking Dodgers 3 games. I know it's the Dodgers, I get it. Hunter Green gives up 2 earned. throws 39 pitches over 100 miles per hour, and yet can't win. Can't. This Reds team is literally the worst Reds team I have seen in a very long time. And thank you, Bob Castellini. It's all your freaking fault. I'm sorry. I'm getting heated over here.
It is Bob's fault, man.
Gosh.
I told you, Ben, I think that Cleveland ceiling was like third in their division, but most likely fourth. And then for that little stretch there between Kansas City and then the Cincinnati series, seeing the bats like go off the way they did, I was just like, maybe we are going to be okay.
And then you were humbled. And then
now my expectations that I initially had are starting to look a little bit more like how the season might be right now. But it's also kind of tough to say because the Giants got a really solid pitching staff, and if the Cleveland's bats already aren't that great, and they're going against elite pitching, we know they're not going to be.
It might be nice though, the fact that you can have a losing season and not know you're going to and know that you're not going to lose everybody. We're going to have a losing season. We're going to lose freaking Hunter Green might get traded. You know what? At this rate, Hunter Green's going to get traded at the freaking deadline.
Man, that'd be terrible.
No, but I'll be honest. Like I don't want to sound like I really I hate the Reds or anything. I don't. And this is just me being really frustrated because I grew up watching the Reds in the 2010 to 2014 when they were always in the playoffs. And then again in 2019 to 2021 when they made the playoffs and they were competitive. And it's I don't get it. And again, when you look and you see the Pirates have a better winning percentage right now, and nothing against the Pirates, but they're bad. The Pirates are bad.
Yeah,
you look at their offense, they're so bad.
Yeah.
But you look at the Reds and it's Joey Votto is not the same Joey Votto, obviously. But the fact that you have guys that I've never heard of in the bullpen and you have guys I've never heard of on the bench. I'm very knowledgeable about baseball and I'm looking at these guys I've never heard of you. I don't know, and then you look at our DL, we have India's hurt, Senzel's hurt, Castillo's hurt, Mike Minor's hurt. And it's this is what you get, Castellini family, for when you decide to sell every freaking good player we had on the team and you get nothing in return. I mean, that's like my dad says, we get stiffs in return every time.
Yeah. I'm sure it didn't help either hearing him go off in an interview saying, well, if the fans don't like it, then I guess they can leave or I'll sell the team or something along those lines.
And the thing is, it's his dad. It's not even him. He's the CEO. He's not even the one that owns the freaking team. And it's dude, wait, first off, you have no right. You can't sell them.
Should have not gone to the next game and it should have been a completely empty stadium.
And the thing is, but that's what's crazy is that's how loyal the Reds fans are. They want to see their team because they love Cincinnati Reds. And it's the same with the Cleveland Cavaliers and this whole thing. We love our team. And I just say this, the Reds will be fine if they can just learn to spend money. I get it. It's expensive. I don't care. You're freaking billionaires. You're millionaires and billionaires. You can spend the money, right? It
costs money. That's
yeah. And so it's so frustrating. You see freaking what's his name? They have Freddie Freeman obviously at first base. So now they moved Max Muncy, who's 240 pounds playing second base. I'm they have a dude
that he plays all around. I think I've seen him at third base before. I think I've seen him maybe in the outfield. He's a really athletic guy.
You know what annoys me?
Came up as second base first, but more naturally fits at first.
It'd be awesome if we could have a guy like that. I would take a Max Muncy at Muncy. That's what I'm calling him. Muncy. There we go. At 240 playing second base for the high state for Cincinnati Reds, right? So I'm just so irritated with the Reds right now. It's besides the point. Yeah. And so, I think it's going to be an interesting rest of the season for both teams, the Guardians and the Reds, and we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But it's going to be fun. I love baseball. We both love baseball. And even if the Reds suck and even if the Guardians suck, we still love watching it. So it's fun to watch. And again, So anyways, that's our show. If you loved listening to us once this week, you can listen to us twice this week on Thursday or Friday, whenever that comes out. You can hear Josh's story pretty much of what's going on in his life, where he's at now, and what God is really doing in his life. And so once again, thank you guys so much for the support, hearing some of your feedback over the last episode and the episode before that. It's just really cool to see and hear. Again, keep on sharing it. It's really cool to see. And next week you'll be hearing from our Draft 3.0. We'll be talking about it. It's going to be a crazy one. I feel like I'm going to be wrong, but that's okay. We're all okay. But Josh, thank you once again for doing 2 different podcasts in one night. I appreciate it, as always. But But yeah, of course. And so once again, if you love this episode, hit that thumbs up button, hit that subscribe button, hit that notification bell. And as always, like it on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. I believe it's on Apple Podcasts now. I have to check, but for sure on Spotify. And we will see you guys next week. Until then, we'll see you.